Good evening, everybody. Once again, we sit down here today to carry on with the Stop Genocide campaign. And we like to welcome today two wonderful guests here. To my left is Mr. Abdul Mitta. How are you today? And to my right here is Charmaine Remhan. And how are you today?
Alhamdulillah, good, thank you.
And I know that both of you are tense, just like everybody else is in the community, in the country. So all of you listening in right now, you can guess why we are here today. We are here today to talk about genocide. It's 2024. The question I'm going to ask both of you first is, today you see the Western allies together with the media have totally mobilized themselves and legitimized war in 2023, 24 coming up. Now, all this is leading to a genocide. Charmaine, I'm going to ask you first.
Well, firstly, I would take issue with the definition of it being a war. It's not a war. There is one occupier which has the most powerful army, one of the most powerful armies in the world. It is armed by the most powerful democracy in the world, the United States, and it is funded by the most powerful democracy in the world, in the United States. They have nuclear armaments. They have one of the strongest armies in the world. And then you've got the other side, which is an enclave of imprisoned Gazans who don't have an army, who don't even have control over their own borders. They don't even have control over the basic needs that they require on a daily basis. So water, food, all of these things can be stopped at a whim by their occupier. So their definition of this being a war is just a falsehood. It's not a war. It is a complete bombardment of an occupying nation against an occupied, imprisoned population in Gaza.
So that's very clear to understand that an occupation, army, community, country cannot go to war with the people that they're occupying. That's very clear. Is that right?
Well, under international law, the occupying power has obligations to take care of the people that it's occupying. So Israel has moved far beyond that, has moved far past that. They are not at the point of taking care. They are actively destroying the infrastructure in Gaza. They are actively bombing hospitals. They are killing civilians, indiscriminately. And I know they say that they're the most humane army in the world, but the reality is the numbers speak for themselves. Over 8,000 dead, of which over 3,000 are children. That is not taking care of your civilians. That is bombing them indiscriminately. Let's be honest.
Now, we're doing a podcast, but we are a little bit different today. Already messages are flowing in, and that is as fast as people are listening in who know that we are broadcasting today, and they are connecting with us already. So I'm going to read through some of those messages as we go along, if you don't mind. Now, Mr. Abdul Mitta, what is your take on this?
Look, when you ask the question, is it a genocide? Of course it is. It's a genocide. It has been a genocide for a long time. And you're dealing with a civilization and an empire that is a specialist in genocide, right? If you look at the Americas, USA is the most powerful force in the world just now, born out of genocide. They cleared their ethnic populations in America, in the Canadas, Australia, New Zealand, right? So they've made a habit of this. I mean, I just received someone sent me an Instagram post about a speech that Winston Churchill made in 1937. With regard to, he refused to call the Red Indian massacre in USA as a genocide. He effectively said that a superior race just replaced them.
I'm just going to stop you there a minute. I've been asked to tell all our listeners right now, if you are listening, WhatsApp number is 07487330030. So you can WhatsApp your question or your comment, and I'll be happy to relay that to everybody. So carry on. Sorry.
So look, if you're taking this particular conflict that flared up on the 7th of October, and you look at the numbers, and my colleague just kind of pointed out indiscriminate bombing, the killing of children, bombing hospitals. This civilization and this empire has been flagrantly ignoring international law and international law norms. As long as it's in their favor, right, they will make up laws as they go along. If you go back if you look at the UK, in 1997, Labour came into power under Tony Blair. As soon as Labour came into power under Tony Blair, the terrorism legislation was put into parliament. That legislation became the Terrorism Act 2000, right? And then what happened after that? 9/11 happened, 7/7 happened, right? Islamophobia industry took on, it effectively took off, right? We are now demonized as a society in our own country, okay? So, and we are a religious minority. Don't forget that during the Second World War, there was a religious minority that was persecuted, which is why we are here, where we are today, okay? The persecuted have become the persecutor.
So what we are seeing here, never again, is happening once again.
It's never stopped.
It's never stopped, yeah.
Never stopped.
So ethnic cleansing has been the root cause of all our human civilization. You're saying from New Zealand to Australia to USA, and all these countries were ethnically cleansed, and messages are coming in fast. And one particular one here that I can see is that when we are doing ethnic cleansing and we want to clear the north part of Gaza, we are actually, is another one message I said, we are land grabbing.
There's two things here, okay? And this is what these empires and civilizations are built on. One is land and the other is resources. So they want to grab the land and exploit it for resources. Throughout history, it's been the same. If you look at Africa, everywhere, the colonial empires effectively went into Africa because the industrial age required these resources. They still control it now. Okay, if you look at examples, I'll give you one example. Mali, a country in Africa, produces 800 tons of gold. How much do they have in gold reserves? 0. France, which was the occupying power in Mali, right, produces 0 gold, 0. And they have over 30,000 tons in reserve. So they've been exploiting. So it's all about land and resources. There's two things, right? For the Western empires and the Western civilization to continue as it is, right, they constantly need this. They constantly need the war machine to be going. They constantly need to conquer new lands. They constantly need to grab resources. Otherwise, their industries would collapse.
So, Sharmin, a message has come in here just now to say that once again, we are selling refugees. The world is selling refugees. All neighboring countries, World Bank, loan exterminated. No more loan to Egypt if they take in all the refugees, or some of the refugees. So we have 2 million Gazan to displace. So one wonders what is going to happen to that land once all of these refugees have been bought by another country. And we are selling refugees in actual fact, aren't we?
I mean, I don't know if I would characterize it like that, but the first response for us as people who care about the humanitarian situation in Gaza is that they shouldn't be removed from land that is rightfully theirs. Reality is that we have moved so far past the two-state solution, which the international community has paid lip service to for the last few decades, that this is an opportunity perhaps to clear that land, but we have to fight back and say that's not the case.
Now, if they clear the land, and they've cleared all the people out, then where's the concept of two-state solution gone?
Well, this is the thing, is that it has been a concept that people have paid lip service to, but have done very little in reality to actually bring it about. And I think, as a country, the United Kingdom are just as guilty as the United States and our European allies in not doing enough to bring that solution about. We talk about it too often. We do very, very little in order to actually deliver on our promise. And I think for the United Kingdom, given our historical ties, given the historical legacy we have to that part of the globe, we have a responsibility to correct some of our mistakes. We have a responsibility to deliver a peaceful solution for both Palestinians and the Israelis.
So right now, there's a lot of money diplomacy going on, that if you do this, we'll do that, right? And that is what we are concerned about, that we are once again cleaning up. And ethnic cleansing is all about land grab.
Land and resource.
Land and resource. Now, we've seen historically, wherever there's resource, where there's oil, where there's minerals, there is always ethnic cleansing going on, tribal wars going on, religious wars going on. And there is somebody up there who's sitting there pulling all the strings and creating all these wars.
Look, again, if you go back, all of this has to go back in history. So let's go just back to a little bit of modern history, right? What they've done is they've created a financial system by which they control the world, okay? So if I ask you one question, who does the State Bank of Pakistan belong to? Does it belong to the government of Pakistan? No, it doesn't.
Probably belongs to Citibank in USA.
We won't go into speculative theories. The information is out there. If just the question I've asked, the listeners, everyone can kind of look at it and say, oh, hang on a minute. So what's going on here? So you've got to examine the financial system that was created, the Bretton Woods Accords, the move from the gold standard to the paper standard, the fiat currency, and now we're moving from the fiat standard to digital currency. Right? Who controls it? The other thing is, people kind of complain to me all the time, to say, oh, Facebook have banned me, Instagram have banned me. We're kind of a helpless population, a helpless society, because we completely depend, even for our communication. So if you are feeling upset about what's going on in Gaza and Palestine, and you post something on Facebook, you'll get banned. And very similar in politics.
Okay, now I'm going to go straight to it. Another message has come here on my screen, is that we in the UK are complicit in genocide. When I say we, I'm not talking about me and you. I'm talking about the people in government who rule over us. When we are supplying them all the ammunition, all the tanks, all the weaponry, the modern sophisticated weaponry, and they're going out there and using these weaponry to commit genocide, just like we were doing in Ukraine. Why are we not spending all that money in our own country, on our education system, on our health service? Why?
I mean, there's a lot of issues there to unpack. I mean, you've brought up the fact that there's a clear disconnect between the Ukraine situation and the the Palestine situation. So, and I think this is something that resonates with the British public, is that they've just seen Russia be the aggressor against Ukraine, and they saw the moral standpoint that our nation took, that our government took, and our opposition took with respect to siding with Ukraine and empowering Ukraine to resist its oppressor. And now, straight after that, we've got this situation in which we're taking the diametrically opposed position. We're siding with the oppressor, we're providing arms to the oppressor, we're providing ammunitions to Israel to do the destruction that it's currently embarking upon, and then the deaths that it's inflicting on Gazan people. So that's one thing, is that the hypocrisy and the double standards and the inconsistency is clear. When you look at the money, I mean, the money aspect it's a much bigger question. I think every single human can ask, why do we spend money on war and not on education, on bettering our children's lives? The reality is the United Kingdom doesn't have a great record on poverty. It doesn't have a great record.
But we are a democracy.
Well, we're a democracy, but the reality is we have a democracy that's imperfect. It's not a perfect solution. We've got a two-party system, which means that many of the smaller parties don't even get a look in. The reality is power is shared between the Conservatives and Labour. And that system, unfortunately, is not representative of the British public, because what it means is that a lot of people will often vote.
We've got a call. I'm going to take this call, right? Somebody's called in. If you don't mind,
no, please.
You're good with that? Yes, Ms. Patel, we are doing a live podcast here, right? So it's good for you to call in on our number. How are you today? Good evening. I can't hear you. Can you speak up? I'm good today. As you know, that we are discussing Stop Genocide, and with me today is Charmaine Rahman, and also my good guest here today, Abdul Mitta, and we're discussing about this issue in what's happening in the genocide that is being perpetrated right now by all the governments in the West. So what's your take on this? What did you call us for? Okay, you got to speak up because we can't hear you so well, right? I'd like to ask you if you can call on our number, if you can take a note of it and call on that particular number. Can I give you that number? Yeah, 07 487 330030. Okay, so give us 5 minutes and call us on that so we can finish this particular topic, and I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. This
That's
is
okay.
this is a
Hopefully he rings
live
back.
podcast. Is like that. People call in, and we carry on. So the government, we were saying, are implicit in part of this genocide being currently committed.
Well, our government has been pretty clear in terms of taking a side here. They've, Rishi Sunak went to Israel and he said, "We want you to win."
No, he didn't say that. He said, "I pray that you will win." Or
Yeah.
did he say, "I hope that you will win"? Now, everybody out there, make your own take on that and revert back to the Instagram and see what he actually said. But it was something to that effect.
Yeah.
Yes?
But he's made clear where his sort of obligations are, and it's not with the Palestinian people. And the reality is, anyone with eyes and ears and a brain can see that the people who are being the people who are being oppressed and the people who are really suffering are the civilians.
Now, somebody's asked a question here. What would you have done, Zed? I said, right, guys, I want you all to stop this nonsense. I want this war stopping right now. There's going to be no more war, no more killing. We are now in 2023. That's what I would have said.
I mean, look,
Right? Are you with me on that?
no, we're all with you. Everybody
Ceasefire
agrees.
Are you with
now.
me?
Yeah.
The ceasefire now,
Yeah.
again, our demands, okay? You have to kind of look at all of this timeline. So let's just look
Okay,
at
look,
this
we got little time. I'm going to tell you about time.
But you let me finish this point. You've asked the question, let me, number one, democracy, right? What democracy? 70% of the UK population are against this war. We've been marching, we've been protesting. Who's listening? Nobody.
Well, please, can I remind you that during the Iraq war, there were 3 million people
that march.
and
I was there.
against.
Yeah.
Do you know the stat? How many people were against that weapons of mass destruction
The
story?
Vast majority.
Right? Yet, it still went on.
Exactly.
Now, this
So
is what my concern is, that we do all this objection all over the country. People are losing their jobs. I don't know if you're aware, but a minister or a very top government employee, he was a junior,
Paul Bristow or something.
and he got sacked.
Yeah.
Why did he
again,
get...
again, now this is the question I asked earlier. What democracy? You're gagging your own people. You don't have the right to speak freely.
So if you say from the river to the sea, or if you turn it round to say from the sea to the river,
Yeah, no, it's got to be from the river to the sea because that's how the water flows.
the water flows that
The water
way.
flows from the river to the
And
sea.
then that is now, there's new definitions now. What is anti-Semitic,
They will
right?
come up with all sorts of crazy stuff because they need to keep all of this suppressed. They need to keep the population suppressed. They don't want you to think. They just want you to follow.
Okay, now somebody just sent a message saying, what about Hamas? I said, well, Hamas, right? Now, we always, a simple way to answer is that who created Hamas? And of course they did wrong. Who ever said that they did right? But they are victims.
One man's terrorist, another man's freedom fighter. That's all I have to say. on
That's
this
right.
subject.
Now, what do you say about that?
Well, I think what Hamas did was pretty grotesque, but we don't know all of the details. So we're being given information through the IDF and the Israeli government. And when it comes to full disclosure and honesty from the Israeli government, well, they've got a track record of not being honest. And if we look at the killing of a US journalist, Shireen Abu Akleh, they denied shooting her point blank when she had a press vest on. And then in the few months after the event, when everybody had lost interest, they actually admitted to being the ones that killed her. They initially blamed the Palestinians. So I think only time will give us the full facts of what happened. But we have to be consistent.
I remember that one, the wrong place at the wrong time, yes?
Which one?
Shireen.
Well, they
Shireen Abu
initially
Akleh.
said it was
Yeah.
a crossfire issue.
She was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
But then everyone is at the wrong place at the wrong time as far as the Israelis are concerned. They've been killing indiscriminately for 75 years.
Of course, there are two ways the message has come in. Very good, if you'd like to comment on that. What one listener has wrote in, and he said that, look, there's only two ways to solve this problem. One is a two-state solution, right, which we've been talking about, never implemented. We have to force upon them a two-state solution, just like we forced Israel upon Palestine back in the day. The British were there, and they did it once before, they can do it again.
The two-state
Yeah.
solution was first discussed under the Oslo Accords, and it started in 1993. That is 30 years ago. 30 years ago.
Now, the other...
More than a generation. And it hasn't come about. During the Oslo Accords, all concessions were given to Israel, right, under Yasser Arafat and the PLO. It was never implemented. They never had any intention of implementing it. You know, you never trust anyone that speaks with a forked tongue, right? Here, very, very clearly. I really don't know how much more they need to do to convince people that these are hell-bent on clearing Palestine of Palestinians.
And they
Very
take the
clear.
land and create a greater...
And take the land and utilize the resources from the land and from the sea of Gaza and Palestine. They've already developed a gas field in the north of Israel, right, in the sea. They're supplying that through a pipeline into Cyprus. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but there is information out there that there is a find of huge find of gas.
Please excuse me if I'm going to interrupt you. We have to move fast because we have little time left. Now, another message has come in that back in the 70s, before you guys were born, there was the IRA. They were thriving. They bombed Brighton, Manchester, Birmingham. Now, did the British government go and bomb
No, they didn't.
Ireland?
No, they didn't.
And kill all the civilians? Now we got a call coming in. Yes, please put it through.
Good evening, Mr. Sheikh. How are you?
Yes, I'm fine. Now I can hear you. Yes.
How can I help?
You can help us if you can stop this genocide that is taking place in Palestine. You can help us. Now go on. See what you can do.
Well, I think the first thing is I think you need to help your listeners actually understand what is meant by the crime of genocide.
How are you going to do that? We've only got 8 minutes left.
Well, it's very simple. The International Criminal Court deals with it. Yeah. And the International Criminal Court determines genocide, and I will explain how they categorize it. So, for the crime of genocide, is characterized by the specific intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group by killing its members or by other means, causing serious bodily harm or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, or forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. So that is what is meant by genocide, Mr. Sheikh.
Now, somebody's forgotten to tell Piers Morgan all of that, right? I would like you to dispatch an email to him directly, immediately.
Right.
Now,
So
I will remind you today that yesterday, I think at Chatham House, Keir Starmer is the Labour leader, for those of you who don't know, Red Labour, and he was saying equal and equal, right? So I don't see anything equal.
Sorry, equal what?
Equal for the death, for the stop genocide. He was.
Oh, so are we playing numbers here? You
Yeah.
kill 10 of mine, I'll kill 100 of yours.
Palestinians have equal rights. I can't do that accent very well.
Yeah, but you're conflating the issue. You're talking about genocide. So once the International Criminal Court receives a complaint, then it will investigate, and then investigators take evidence and formulate a case. And if they think that they can bring a prosecution for the crime of genocide, then the appropriate person or state will be served with that particular indictment.
Well, I'm going to tell you another absurd one now. I heard today on the news. He said when he was being interviewed, one of the representatives of the Labour government, he said, yes, Keir Starmer did a very good talk today, and what is not against the law because this is different. It's not like Ukraine. It's different. They're hiding under the houses and the buildings. They've got tunnels there under there. So it's a little bit different. So what does the law say about that?
Are you asking us or?
I'm asking our caller because he knows his stuff, I think.
Well, I'm a lawyer by trade, but I'm not an international law lawyer. But
Tomorrow we're going to get an international law lawyer.
But I think the question that everyone needs to ask is this indiscriminate bombardment. If Israelis are serious about getting their hostages back, do they not worry for a second that they're bombarding their own civilians by bombing all of these so-called Hamas enclaves under the hospitals?
Right. I'm going to go straight on to another message that's come in. Why are the councillors throughout the country following the whip, right, and waiting? Why are they zip-locked? Why?
We live in a free country, don't we?
Why?
The gagging here, right?
There are people
in
dying.
politics.
Come out.
No, come on.
You know, I commend those people who have come out and they've lost their jobs, they've resigned, or they've been suspended, you know, from the river to the sea, from the sea to the river, and you get suspended for that.
Look, again, politics. You know, in this country, democracy started when, you know, the crown, you know, the power was taken from the crown and given to the people. And in the modern age, what's happened is the power now it resides with the corporates, right? So they've, you know, the media, every echelon of government, you know, if you look at everything, the whole thing is corrupt. It's a corrupt mess.
So message has just come in to say that Parliament today is a care home.
Well, you know, look, to be perfectly honest.
Well, it's not representative. I can understand where the sentiment is coming from. It isn't representative. It's far older than the population of the United Kingdom. It doesn't represent the minority communities. So it isn't representative. But one thing I'll say to you about with regards to the councillors, you know, when you look at politics, there's two types of people. One type of person comes in to make a change, and there's another type of person that comes in for a career. And usually what tends to happen is those that are adept at saving their careers and making the decisions that will ensure longevity for them, they tend to survive. And those that are coming in to make a change, unfortunately, they don't get to stay for the long term because they are willing to give up their roles. They are willing to sacrifice their positions in order to make those changes. And I think what we need to tell our listeners and the electorate nationwide is that we need to put our support, our votes and our money and our everything behind the change makers, not the career makers. And those are the two distinct type of people that tend to come into politics.
It used to be a vocation, now it's a professional occupation.
Yes, sir. Can I just butt in?
Yeah.
Right, because my understanding was that you're discussing genocide, but I think you have to take a pragmatic approach to a very complicated and sensitive issue concerning the Palestinian and Israeli conflict. And the starting point has to be a ceasefire, because nothing is going to happen until the bombardment has stopped and where people can actually take a step back and start deciding on not just the futures of Palestinians, but clearly the futures of the Israeli population. And that's, in my view, what most politicians, principal politicians, should be arguing for. Because the reality is this, whether it's next month or the month after, there won't be military conflict, I hope, in Israel. And when this particular trouble ends, there's still going to be Palestinian people living in that part of the world, and there will be Israeli people living in that part of the world.
I genuinely don't think that's going to be the case. If you look at the extent to which they are clearing North Gaza and then saying if you move to South Gaza, you'll be safe, then bombarding South Gaza as well as North Gaza, they've made clear their intentions. They want the Palestinians living in Gaza to go into the Sinai Desert and essentially leave their homes. I don't believe in a month or two time that the Israelis actually want to see a single Palestinian left in that area.
I think the broader point I want to make is still lots of Palestinians living in the West Bank.
Who are being, right now the settlers have been provided ammunitions by government ministers to kill indiscriminately. And they're being ethnically cleansed.
200 Palestinians.
Right, guys. We got to... I'm sorry, I have to stop you now because we're coming to the end of this podcast. And I will say right now that we all can agree that there is ethnic cleansing, land required, and they want to do a clear out of the north. And then eventually, once the clear out is done, then somebody will say, oh, we can do a ceasefire now. So that's what's happening. I want everyone to waken up to this fact And today, let's hope that we pray that some change will happen tomorrow. So thank you very much, guys. We'll be back here tomorrow and we'll continue with this subject. Stop
Thank you.
genocide. Thank you very much.
Thank you.